What's up, buddy?
Hey, my man, there you are. How are you?
Good.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. You ready to roll?
Yep.
All right. So, gang, everybody, welcome. Mr. Alwyn Cosgrove, welcome. We appreciate you spending like the next 3 hours with us. Should be pretty good. I don't know, 45 minutes, somewhere around in there. I want to respect your time, but really appreciate you being here, my man. Kind of talking a little bit about my experience, but I always like to kind of give a little idea of where I first had the opportunity to see you speak and how I kind of got connected to you. 2009, Personal Trainers Conference in Las Vegas with the NSCA. I saw you present, and your topic was on like the development, the progression of the personal trainer, like our industry and how we've gone. And almost every speaker you see, like there's usually one thing that you're like, I remember when he told this one story, you had this one point. I came away with like 10 of them from your talk, and I was just blown away. Like there were really good speakers there. Parisi was there, and just a bunch of other speakers. And I remember leaving this. I'm such a dork with this. I carry the little notebook that they give you there. I actually keep that like in my office as my first event to kind of remind me of when this all started. And the two shoe salesmen, that story stuck, and it was all just like the mindset of how are you going to perceive these opportunities? Are they happening to you, or are they happening for you? And like that, just right away it clicked, and I'm like, hell yeah, you got to take advantage of the opportunity set before you. So between your programming, you and Rachel, and the successes you've had at Results, and just, Results University, like always found really good inspiration from you guys, great education from you as always. You've been leaders in this for such a long time. So I really appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. And if there's anybody on here that doesn't know who you are, if you just give a minute or two little intro about you and your background and where you're located, etc.
Oh, thank you for having me. I am a gym owner in Southern California, Santa Clara, California, which is just the north end of Los Angeles County, just before you head into Ventura County. We've been open 20 and a half years. I guess you don't stop saying a half when you're past the age of like 5, right? We're open 20 and a half years, and I'm excited to be here, and hope I can give some value to the attendees.
Absolutely. But let's start off a little bit about talking about the gym. Like how are things COVID-wise down for you? Can you kind of tell us about when you guys shut down and the process going through?
Friday is 7 months since we closed. I think we were open for just under a month in middle of June and closed again. And to be honest, right now there's the way the criteria is in California, as you'll know, it's unlikely that LA County will ever reopen. The numbers are too hard to hit, so it's just this. I don't want to say sad realization, just a realization that gyms will never reopen. They just added a criteria that areas of a county based on a healthy place index, which is unrelated to COVID, are now criteria for reopening post-COVID. So air quality, voter turnout, availability of alcohol are all indicators on whether a place is healthy in California or not. Trees, things like that, green belt areas. So Santa Clara, which is the north part, will not be allowed to reopen if East LA didn't vote in enough numbers in 2016. The criteria doesn't make sense. And I'm fed up getting upset about it. I understand the challenges. We've divided this country into states, and each state has its own guidelines. And California is further divided into counties. So there's a possibility that an outbreak in a hospital in Long Beach could lead to Lancaster and LA County 100 miles away having to close, while Anaheim, which is 19 miles away or so, can be open because it's across the county line.
Gotcha.
I don't like to get political, but I'd like to understand the science behind these decisions, and there appears to be none. So it's a little frustrating. I can do a 5-hour talk on how it sucks, or I can just move on and adapt.
Yeah, I hear you, and I'm sorry you guys are still shut down. I know you and I were able to kind of go back and forth the last couple months and enjoying your Instagram lives, getting to chat with you guys, hearing updates as you go. We've been up now 10 days and we're at 10% capacity. So for a little place like me, it's basically we're 2 people short of what we would normally be able to do. But
Yeah,
a lot
I think
of
there are some rooms like that I mean, I'm not asking questions, but is the capacity based on how many appointments I normally had or my fire capacity?
Yeah,
I'm not
by us, it
asking
was
any
fire
questions.
code.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 50 square feet per person. And
Yes, I
then
think
it's 10% of that.
with your appointment based facility, like that won't be that much of an issue for you.
Yeah.
I mean, the for those you're not in California listening, is if LA County had less than 100 new cases per day and 15,000 tests per day, a gym can open at 50% capacity. There's no further opening beyond that. However, with the 15,000 minimum testing rate, that test has a 1% false positive, which is actually very good scientifically. But that means there will always be 150 positive tests. You can never hit that number. The science just isn't there. And I suspect there'll be something after the election that will make this all go away.
So what are you guys doing in the meantime? Like, how are you? I know you're doing some park training, right?
Yeah, so we're outdoors. The idea, like, I mean, it's going to be in LA right now. It's 10:50 in the morning. It's 80 degrees right now. It'll go over 100 this afternoon. So the idea of just going outside isn't as simple as it sounds. Our parking lot outside is slightly sloped, so it's not great for us to do a lot of stuff out there. So we're working at a local park. We're doing some stuff in the parking lot, and we're delivering our programs remotely. I mean, I complain about it, and I'm fortunate in that the actual physical gym is only one of my businesses, so I've been able to do some other stuff. Like I'm emotionally tied to it. I'm not going to pretend that that's not the case. But you do have to think of it as a business owner at some point. It's just like, this is a stock you've invested in that right now isn't able to perform well. Like, not that I'm going to drop it, but I have to focus on other areas and do other things. So.
Yeah, I totally get it. And then online, are you guys offering some online training too?
Yeah, we've always offered that. I've never needed to offer it because we've always been so busy in the gym. Like, we've always had a little bit of it. I've got a couple of people asking me, do you think online training is as good as in person? Of course it's not. Of course it's not, right? But it's better than a book, and it's better than no help because the technology is there. So we have a little bit of that. We used a company called The Bridge Athletic, and you can put the workout in there, send it to your members, and we can attach a video of how to do the exercise to it. We actually filmed our coaches doing it in our facility. So our members that are familiar with it can see what's going on. And the advantages of remote, we call it remote coaching. I think online just had a weird term to it that I didn't like it's virtual training, like it's not real. Just called it remote coaching. Like, with my obstacle course racing athletes, I'm not there for every mile they run. Like, I'm not timing like every 800. Like, they just report them into me. So I've always done a level of remote coaching. This is just even further. And the cool part is you're now not restricted to your own area, which is cool. You can, get clients from out of state, which is, allows you to grow. However, so can anybody. So you're competing with a bigger pool,
And so it's something.
People on live. What's up, guys? I just seen the attendees there.
Yeah.
Attendees. What's up, everybody?
So you offer that all the time, your remote training? Yeah, that's a regular service?
We've always offered it. Just obviously when we first had to close, our first move is we were doing some workouts live on Zoom, and I think clients enjoyed that for a while, and then it just kind of fizzled out, right?
Yeah.
Then we'd send them their workouts, and what we did is in the short term, before we were allowed to reopen, is we just rented out our equipment at zero charge for my members. If they were an active member, you could check out kettlebell or a bar. I think some of our guys had good setups where they could take equipment home. Some had home gyms anyway, and they were paying more for. Like, I've always felt that you pay for access to people like us and our knowledge, and it includes access to my facility, right? But if you choose to work out at your home, that's fine too. But so we've always offered it. It just scaled up when we did this. I want to be clear, is I think the science is very clear that gyms don't spread this any, and I don't want to say that we just not any more than any other facility would, any other business would. And I think that the science really suggests that people in shape have a better way to shake off this virus. This virus is real. It's also being politicized, but I think gyms can open safely, and I think guys like you will demonstrate exactly how to do that. And we will look back on this as having that the idea of closing gyms as being a mistake. If I thought gyms were dangerous, I would close mine in a second.
Yeah,
right?
I hear you. Me too.
I'm not that meathead guy who's just was just blind that we're going to stay open no matter what. But I when you dig into the actual science, I think you can do it. You can train people extremely safely indoors.
I agree.
And I think other than LA County, the world is open.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
I think the evidence is in at this point. I think that argument is off the table.
As far as I know, you guys are the only ones left. Like we pretty much, the state of California was kind of the last, and then half of it just got reopened with us included.
Yeah. The challenge is the ongoing restrictions, and I think that's
yeah.
I would suggest there's probably a legal loophole to that
technically
gyms aren't closed, right? Like there's just a way to get around that. It is. I'm not complaining. I mean, I'm complaining, but it's enough's enough,
So programming wise for you guys, when and if hopefully when you get to come back. So we've seen a big change in the way we got to program. It's very similar to your environment where you have people all over working with coaches, intermix and using, sharing equipment. We've drastically had to change the way that we program. We had to buy more equipment. We basically have like 6 mini gyms inside a gym now. Everybody's kind of sectioned up. Is that something you're kind of looking at doing moving forward?
We reopened for the couple of weeks.
4 weeks, yeah.
The rules at the time were, they'll have changed since, but you had to wear a mask unless you were actually exercising, which I actually found hard. Wearing it during a set was easy, and after the set, I needed to take it off. Right, it was like putting it on after the exercise was like the science
stifling.
Yeah, like I needed taking it off between sets was fine, but we followed the rules, and then we did what we call a pod system. We just marked areas. We marked like a 6x6 square, and then I would have you would train at the front of your square, and someone on the next square would train at the back of their square.
Gotcha.
Right? So that the angle was you were more than 6 feet apart, and we spread it out. And I sent this into the governor of the NSCA guidelines that an Olympic bar is 7 feet. If I stand in the middle of an Olympic bar, I'm 3.5 feet from the end. And based on my certification, I need 3 feet to the end of the next bar. And that guy will, in the middle of his bar, will be 3.5 feet away. I would be at closest 10 feet from someone. We could have opened from day one.
Yeah.
And when we were allowed to open it, it was 6 feet. But our challenge is we just called it I think it was called the shelter in place. They call it in California. We just called it train in place. You had your own little pod where I'd put all your equipment in and you'd train. And at the end, you'd leave it there. We'd clear the gym for 50 minutes, disinfect everything, put it away, and then the next group would come in. We'd do 3 groups, close for an hour and disinfect, and do another 3 in the afternoon.
Nice.
We had people wearing masks, everything going on. So we were able to do it. It did change the training a little bit because we couldn't circuit. I would have to circuit you in place. But I'll figure that out. Right? If I come into your facility, Robert, and all the weight plates are gone, and I've got a group of people ready to train, I'll figure that out.
Yep.
I can't figure it out when you allow me to do, what you've done is make what I do illegal, right?
Yeah, I hear you. That's, it's definitely changed.
In California, I don't know if you've seen this, that if you have a party at your house, singing happy birthday is now illegal. There's no singing allowed, right? And you have to do a party outside, and if people are allowed in to use the restroom, somebody's actually taken the time to write this and send it out. Right.
Yeah, I saw the one about trick or treating. We can't trick or treat. They can't trunk or treat. You got to drive in cars or something and hand closed bags to each other. And it was like we were looking at it with our kids. We're like, we'll just do one in our in-laws, you know, and kind of have them go bedroom to bedroom to
I'm not
trick or treat.
one
Like,
for breaking the rules, but when the rules start to be so absurd, right?
yeah, getting a little silly. Yeah.
So our programming just evolved to be a little limited, but we can figure it out. We're not sharing equipment within the session, and I think as every state had their own phases, I think you could probably do that within your facility, Robert. That phase one, there's no sharing of equipment, and then your personal phase two is within members of your household. You could probably share equipment, and eventually we have to. Any pandemic there is, we get past it. This one has just been taking longer, and I think there's been some scientific mistakes, and I think there's been some political mistakes, but you'll figure out the training, and it may just mean that it's the old fitness together model, right? Like where it was all these little mini gyms, right? Like you put in 8 squat racks, and I mean, Exos was doing it. That every rack had a platform, a pulley system, and a set of power block dumbbells. You could do everything in one spot, right? And
you got to get creative with the programming.
Yeah. You just give me I can write the program and figure it out just within the restrictions.
Yes, you can. There it is. Nice segue, right? Fantastic. Tell me about this a little bit. I ordered it as soon as I could. I think it's fantastic. It's a great tool. A lot of the things I recognize that, you know, I've learned from you over the years and with working with my staff and such.
I think a lot of people have been familiar with some of our programming, but we had a fat loss manual that explains some stuff that was self-published, and quite honestly, not a lot of people see it, right? When it's a self-published book. But all my books are really aimed at the end user, like the people that were just going to work out and do it. So it's always like here's my cake. Here's my cake handy to you, right? And some of the smarter coaches sort of reverse engineered my programs and kind of figured out our thought process, but it was never aimed at coaches. So this was the first book that was actually aimed at here's what goes on in our heads at Results Fitness when we write something. And so far it's been well received, but it's actually the first like other than self-published things and stuff we've done internally, which is actually mainly video, it's the first sort of book aimed at the coach, the professional, the CT thing. But the way I see it is like all my other books were you were eating at Gordon Ramsay's restaurant, and here's what he did, and this is his recipe book now, so you can see how he came up with the things. Right, so that's our idea, is that it was our recipe book of how we deliver the product in the end.
And you guys, I mean, you go step by step from component exercise selection by movement pattern and how to progress each one. Like, it's really well done. You
well,
did a great job.
I think a lot of people, like, I know I'll track things on social media for marketing, and when I post, like, here is me doing a lunge, there's a few likes, few comments, and I'm like, here's me doing a reverse lunge with the sandbag going around my head to train the core. And then I'll always see someone with guarantee within 24 hours will tag me in an Instagram story that they're doing the exercise. And I'm like, I was showing the exercise and I want people to learn it, but it's weird that you immediately think this should fit into your program the next day, right? That this was immediately the missing link. So I think a lot of people look at exercise selection as being this magical thing. And I take it a backward step, and I'm like, all right, we're going to train the squat, and it's going to be a staggered stance squat. We're going to train the hinge, and it's going to be a single leg hinge. And then there's a whole bunch of the exercise selection is kind of like the least important thing. I don't mean unimportant, just everything else is the recipe and the amount we're doing. The actual choice of a kettlebell RDL versus dumbbell or barbell or a sandbag is that's, you know, it's almost
personal preference at that point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So when you guys create these programs, they're built. So you and Craig's like your head programmer, right?
Yep.
And so he does train a bit too, but he's mostly writing programs. Okay. So when you guys do train, do you have a different, you're big on philosophy design and like knowing your system. Do you have a different system, different philosophy for targeted goals for each of the clients? Do you have, I know you guys have like a powerlifting team, you have some endurance racers, Rachel does Spartan race, like that kind of stuff. Are you guys running different systems at different times?
I think it's like asking like does a chef have a different system for making a dessert as opposed to a soup or an appetizer? Not really, but the end product will look very different. Like I still start with people, right? I'm starting with a person in front of me, and I look at, like, you want to do an obstacle course race and you can't do a pull-up. Well, this is a basic strength program that will end up looking like an obstacle course race program. You come in and you're super strong, but you don't have a lot of aerobic conditioning, then it'll look a lot like that, right? So the philosophy remains the same, but each decision, it's like I'm going to leave my house and I'm going to drive my car, and every turn I make is in a different direction, but I'm still driving the car the same way, right? So that's the best way to describe it. Is this is like the rules of the road. Is I'm going to check that the car has gas, that there's air in the tires, that the wheels are aligned, and I'm going to go on my journey. And then every turn is going to take me somewhere else. But a fat loss program could look very different than a powerlifting program, but I'm still training a human being with respect to their goals. So the thought process actually starts the same way. I start with the person, their goals, and really how they move tells me a lot. And then you're looking at, it's like packing for a trip, right? It's like I'm putting, I was in Moscow a year ago this week. It was ice cold. It was freezing. I didn't pack beachwear. Like I didn't pack swimwear, right? But I own swimwear, right? So it just, if I was going to the beach, I would take different things, and that my luggage and my clothing sizes don't change, right? But where I'm going on my journey changes. So that suitcase can look very different at the end, but the idea of packing for the trip holds true, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's it's interesting when you talk philosophy with different trainers and like trying to figure out the systems. We still find a lot of times when we're discussing this, they don't have one. You know, they're just kind of making up stuff on a daily basis. And we're like, there's got to be some rhythm or rhyme to how you're putting things together. Your first book you did with Lou, the new rules for lifting, really kind of prioritizes the basic idea of like have your movement patterns, the things you really like to do, and progress that. And that was pretty groundbreaking for me. Also,
I've got one of my younger coaches right now, and I'm kind of challenging her, like, and it's difficult because, of course, she's adopted my training philosophy.
Right.
You come up under me and you're learning, and it'd be silly not to. But I want to challenge her, like, is there stuff you disagree with me on, or you're not completely sure? And I want you to start developing your, like, start questioning, is this just something that I believe, not to question me, not to challenge me, but is this just something you've accepted as a truth?
Do you truly believe it?
Right, like, or do you truly believe it? Like, and I asked her, like, she wrote a program, and it was like 2 days of weight training and 2 days of interval training for a fat loss client. I'm like, why did you put interval training there and not another weight training? And she was having a hard time answering it. I'm like, you're that's what I would have done too, but I want you to explain why you did it.
I want to know why.
Other than you told me to. And I think that's a part is, I think Mike Boyle wrote an article a long time ago that in the beginning, you just got to follow someone else's recipe, right? And but eventually you're like, or let me see what I think. And I think you do have to develop your own philosophy. And it's almost like, you and I are very similar. It's movements, not muscle groups. But if you're a muscle groups, not movements guy, that's fine too. But you got a thought process behind what you're doing. Like if I come in your gym and I'm like, why is that lady doing bicep curls? And you're like, because I want to improve her core stability. I'm like, all right, you may be wrong, but at least you had a thought process behind it. Right? Because often the answer is, don't know.
Right? It's hard.
So but I'm like, if you think you're doing dumbbell curls to improve her core, I'm like, okay, we've got some education to do, but at least there was a reason behind this that's wrong. Yeah. I can fix that better than I don't know. But I think it's important for a young coach to maybe not day one. Maybe you do want to adopt a senior coach's philosophy, but start exploring it and see how things come up. Like I've seen things that one of the challenges with the internet is things that you wrote 14 years ago are still out there. Yeah. And like I've learned that I no longer, I was not wrong then. I gave you the best I had, but my philosophy has evolved, right? Like I would no longer be like that. And then I was interviewed earlier this morning for something, and I said that you have to understand the context of which you say something. Like, I wouldn't do dumbbell curls with a 45-year-old body comp female client because I have limited training time. And that gets translated to dumbbell curls have no place in my program, right? That's not what I said, right? Like, if you ask me about metabolic conditioning and I don't mention stretching, that doesn't mean I don't believe in stretching, right? So we're in the soundbite generation. We're in the 140 character tweet. But if you're a young coach, you know, listening to this, you start like exploring not to challenge your mentors or to question them, which is fine, but just to explore, how did they come up with this idea, right? And even if you disagree with it, just how did they come up with this idea and on their own journey? Because now you can join your journey at that same point and save yourself 20-something years of being in the field, in the trenches.
Well, that's exactly what we teach with TOA, with our online education, is just teaching how to implement a system. That the system can be different, just have that, because we'll look back and we'll look at you, we'll look at Dan, John, Mike Boyle, you know, we'll look at a 10 or 20 different coaches and we'll say, what do you see similarity wise? We'll see, well, they have a process, just like you're saying. Yeah. That's all we need, right? The end result, the strategies, the ways that you do it, the way you want to do it. That's great, because it all works at some point, right?
You did it as a big like Venn diagram with all interlocking circles. They overlap a lot, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you'll be saying like, hey, Alan Cosgrove thinks this, and then Mark Verstegen thinks that, and I'm like, yeah, look, we're probably both wrong, because 92.5% of it we're on board with, right? Like,
it's the same thing, yeah.
And I've always felt like, I mean, even talking politically, I would vote the exact way you're going to vote if I lived your life. That I'm sure of, right? Like, and that's why nobody can convince anybody of anything else. Right. I am sure if I had been around only Olympic weightlifters, my programming would be very different than the path I took. Yeah. And I would, and that's why I don't, like when someone says, what do you think of Mike Boyle's thing or Mark's thing or Dan John's thing? I'm like, I would probably agree with them 100% if I had their experiences, because they're very smart people. I've had slightly different experiences, so we have slightly different answers to these things that in the big picture may be of no concern. But what as you touched on, what I want you to get is, we have a thought process behind what we're doing, sure, right? And even if the thought processes are different, the idea of a thought process is the same, right? And that's part of the, I don't want to say the magic behind it, that we're not freestyling, like, yeah, we're taking a step-by-step approach.
You know, you mentioned something a minute ago about saving yourself, you know, time and frustration and years. I had a mentor at the country club I worked at before, and I would come in and I'd always say, I'm really frustrated. And he would say, frustration is your friend. It's telling you that you're doing something wrong and you need change. And it wasn't like 2 weeks later. I'm such a dork. I'm going to keep book dropping you here. But I got this guy, right? The original one I had was the red copy of the 55 Mistakes. And I'll tell you what, like reading through that, I remember reading it on the airplane ride home. I think I was in LA for one of the Perform Betters. And I read it on the way back and I'm like, man, this would have saved me, you know, so much time and frustration and all this as you come through. So, you know, books like that.
What I tried to do with that book is I tried to summarize, I mean, it's not complete, obviously, but I try to summarize in 1 minute, like my quick answer to a thing. Right?
That's the problem. Here's the answer. Yeah.
And the part of what we talk about with program design is, when you develop a system of program design, I can start to predict the outcome, right? I can predict the outcome. If I can predict the outcome, I can guarantee the result. And if I can guarantee the result, I can scale my model, because I can give you what I'm doing with people, right? Now, if you're starting with a blank sheet every time to write your program, you don't know how that's going to end up, right? You're improving every time, and improv is fine, but I don't like to improvise with someone else's health or my own business. So I look at things as, here's how I can predict an outcome, right? And once I have a system like that, I can predict outcomes, then I can start really guaranteeing that I know what I'm doing, because I see it so many times. And that's just like following a system is just a recipe, right? If I give you the recipe, you can follow it, and maybe it's not perfect, but it's way better than you freestyling it, right? And doing things. And that's I like that phrase, like, frustration is your friend, right? It's just I have another phrase that if you complain about something 3 times, the universe is telling you that you're the person that has to come up with a solution.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? The solution's not out there, right? So it's the gap between where most people are and where they want to be is called frustration.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is.
That process, yeah.
And that gap can only be closed through education, but also action. Like collecting the books and reading them is only a piece of it. You got to start putting stuff into action.
Yeah. Yeah, you're reading my mind. Yeah, I was listening to Brett Bartholomew yesterday, and he was just on a rant, just letting people have it of like, you guys, you all come on and you ask me, you know, what's the book I should read first? He's like, I don't know, I'm not you. I don't know what you know. I just put up 20 of them that, and his whole bottom line was like, you need to take action. And that's like, you have to do. You can only gather so much information. You can only think about things so much. At some point, you got to start doing it. You got to put it into action. You got to see if it works. And that's big on programming. A lot of times we're working with people the first time, they're like, I don't know what to put down. And I'm like, you got to put down something. We got to start somewhere, you know, just write a program. Let's start doing it. And then we'll see, is it valid? Is it, you know, does it work at the end? Did you get results from it? If not, let's change it. If it works, we're on the right path, you know?
On Brett's point, I think it's like, I don't know what you need to be reading. This is my first thing, right? What books are you reading? I don't know what, like, have you, there's books I read 10 years ago that if you haven't read yet, maybe you should start there. Because usually what people are asking is, what are you reading right now? And I'm like, I could be reading something about investing in Bitcoin. I'm not sure if that helps you, right? I don't know what you should be reading. I don't know what you've read. I don't know where you're at. But I have a good rule of, let's not read another book until we put something into action from the last book. Right? And I taught this at a recent seminar I did. And one thing we get asked a lot at Results Fitness is, why do you put core training first? And my answer is similar to yours is, well, you got to put it somewhere. Where do you put it? And like, I'll put it at the end. I'm like, why do you put it at the end? Right? Like, it just is a strange question to ask because it goes somewhere, right? Does it?
Yeah.
Mike Boyle does it in the middle. He mixes it in his trisets. Some people do it all at the end. We've just always, when I look at the science, exercise order is a variable that a lot of us ignore. And the whatever's done first seems to improve the most. And I make a case a lot of the time that I haven't seen it. I've got one American Ninja Warrior girl who, if she fails in a front squat, she fails like it just stops moving and she stays at the bottom looking perfect. Most people collapse through the trunk. In my entire career, I've seen one person who doesn't do that. Therefore, I think core, I could make a case for it first, but I'm not married to it. But what I wanted to get across to people is you've got to put it somewhere and have a reason why you put it there, right? Like it doesn't matter where it is, but this is going to be a weird answer. It doesn't matter where it is as long as it matters where you put it, right? Like if you put it in the middle and that's your
reason why it's there,
for that, then I'm on board with you too.
Yep.
If you put it at the end or you want it to do a completely separate training session, all these things are fine. But I do like that rule of we do not need to consume more education until we've battle tested something. Like put something in action and see what happens.
Sure. Yeah, you just mentioned you were speaking at an event not too long ago. How's your speaking and opportunities to get out and educate and such? Obviously, a big difference. Yeah, it's a big one, right? You tired of talking to computer screens yet, or like how's it going?
I mean, this is a little bit better because I can see you. With one of these, I was doing I don't see the audience at all, and it's. What's interesting is if you start really studying speaking, and I've seen people refer to me as a good presenter, but I'm good in a live room with people sitting in chairs in front of me. Doing it to a screen like a newscaster would, where there's no one in the audience, that's a different skill set that I don't have yet. I can tell you I'm not there yet because I can talk about something that makes sense to me, like exercise order. And if I was doing this live at an NSCA or I perform better, I could see faces go, wait, what? And then I can expand on it, or I see them get it and I know I can move on. When I'm just facing right? I get no feedback and I know I have skill to develop in that situation. So if this is the future of presenting, I'll evolve and get better. But I did 28 road trips last year for live events, and we did, I think, 7 or 8 internal events. The This year, I think I've done 6, and they're all on Zoom.
January. Okay, there you go.
We're about to launch our mentorship online, and I'm going to change the format completely, because the idea of you sitting down for 8 hours and watching video, I don't think people can learn like that right now. I think maybe me doing daily 15-minute clips over a much longer period of time, like weeks as opposed to days. My hypothesis is this may be a better way to learn right now. I may be wrong, but we'll see, right? But I've got to show up differently now.
3 years ago, I did a course all in one day. It was like 8 hours. I was wiped out at the end. I'm sure people were tired of listening to me.
Yeah.
And the next year, we did 8 individual every Monday. We did one for 8 weeks, and an hour long, which for me is usually like an hour and a half because I talk forever. But that just went over so much better. And we've been doing that ever since. So really it's like a one-day clinic. You just break it out, into your hours. And you're totally right. Like it's a whole different skill set. I almost feel like I'm trying to like entertain myself. And I'm like, if I'm entertaining me, hopefully they're being entertained. I ended up hiring a friend of ours who's a speaking coach to watch some of my presentations to tell me how it came across. And, you hear about your idiosyncrasies and things that can be annoying and things that need to be explained more. And so one of the big ones that came away for me was, I would say, you need to move your hand like this rather than like this, as opposed to saying you need more extension, less flexion, right? And so if someone wasn't instantly paying attention, they wouldn't know, right? And so it was just being more clear about certain things when really felt a big difference. This was like right around March or April, and then we started getting really good responses as we started to clean things up. But you nail it. Like, this is a new way that we're going to be doing this. It's going to be an adaptation for us.
If you think of presenting is now like, because people see it as I'm a speaker, and they see the perform better where people are in chairs facing a stage and you've got the clicker and a mic. But what if you're presenting at a board meeting and you're all around the table, right? That's a different skill set. You're all sitting down. What if you're presenting a sales pitch to 2 people at a school who's going to send their athletes to you? Or what if you're doing the whole thing on Zoom where you get 0 feedback if the audience are getting this, right? Like you can tell a joke and no one laughs, or they all laugh, but you're just unaware. And you're like, did that joke kill, or did it just completely fall flat? I use humor a lot, and humor, it would not work unless you and I are presenting together. Mm-hmm. Like, you could laugh with me as a co-host for a show, right? If we were co-hosting something, if you're just like I've watched John Oliver on HBO and Bill Maher, and when they were locked down, they were just them talking like a monologue to the camera, and man, they weren't both as good as they are live. It's another skill set. So when you're thinking of this as a coach, the idea is that you may have to show up differently as a remote thing, right? He likes the no crowd better because if they don't like his jokes, he doesn't know, and he thinks he's.
That's my wife. Because I'm here going, and they're all at home going. Thanks, honey.
If you're a coach listening, this goes beyond just presenting. Like I move around when I'm coaching, and I was always very tactile, right? And if you look at Nick Winkelman's language of coaching, like kinesthetic cueing, you've got to find a way now to do someone who responds kinesthetically. You've got to find a verbal cue that works with them when you're working remotely. So it's like, is it challenging or is it exciting? It's exciting is the way I see it, is that we've got to learn a new skill set now.
Yeah. Communication is now becoming a thing that we have to learn. Where before you could just kind of get in front of people and be like, if you're not getting me, explain it, and I can show it to you. You know what I mean? Or I can position you. Like, this is now a whole separate piece.
One of my younger female staff, she sent me an email question, and then she was said I replied like a certain way, and Alan replied like, just do 20 reps. And I'm like, I did not type it like that, right? Because you read that in your mood. And we've reached the world. So Keegan there, you can tell, like, in order to let us know she's joking, she has to put in the smiley
Yeah,
faces.
yeah. Or else I'd be like, oh, she doesn't like my jokes.
And that's the world we're in. Like we're almost so bad at communicating via text that we created emoticons so we can communicate our real intent, right?
And show the emotion behind our text.
You know,
Yeah.
I remember saying it. I don't know. It was a comedian said it. Do people really laugh out loud as often as they type LOL? Because that would be weird.
I actually type, you just made me LOL. So people know, like, I actually did it. I didn't just go, that's funny.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not for real, like haha out loud.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna jump around because I got a couple more things I want to get to before we let you go. So never miss a Monday workout. I would love to know where that came about, because that was something that really connected for me. You know, I think maybe the first time I saw you put it up, you're like, we're doing this because it starts your week off on the right foot. Like you had a couple, you know, emphasis that you really wanted to deliver. So give me a little background on that. I just can't tell you how much I love that. I think it's an awesome thing.
I think it's the philosophy, and it doesn't matter the day, like it's the start of your week. But I think there's always been this the Sunday night blues that Mondays come in. And I can remember growing up in Scotland, there was TV shows that came on at 9 at night on a Sunday, and the theme tune was a trigger that it was a school night again. And you had to go to bed because it was school the next day. And I was like, wow, that theme tune would trigger me being sad. And I've just decided that like I will change my mood, right? I will choose this, that Monday is my opportunity to, like, you can change anytime you want. You don't need a New Year's to make a change, right? But there's an energy in the air at that time that it's silly to not take advantage of New Year's resolutions and goal setting. And I think Monday is like a fresh start, right? No matter what you did, it's a fresh start. So if you trudge into Monday, right, like you can go in and just be like, all right, and just let the week happen to you, or you can attack it. So I have this idea: never miss a Monday workout, and a workout could be 3 squats that you check the box, that you moved the change, right? You did something to, and I just like attack the week. Start with a workout, first thing you do, and maybe you got to go to work early, but just put the first thing on your calendar is your workout at 6 o'clock that night. They just never miss a Monday workout. I mean, if you're injured or sick, I get it, right? Don't take me as a hard and fast. That's it's a philosophy, and that's my just never miss a Monday workout. Attack the week. It's another chance to make things happen and move the change.
Yeah, I love it. I tell clients all the time. They'll call and they're like, I blew it this weekend. I ate a pizza and I drank a bunch of root beer. Maybe that's me saying that. But they come in and they're like, oh, I'm disappointed. I'm like, well, every day brings this new opportunity for you to like start fresh. Like we don't have to wait for something specific. We can let's just start right now.
You got a flat tire driving, to use the car analogy, you got a flat tire driving your car, right? We pull over and we change the tire. We don't smash
the car away, yeah.
Right? We don't write the car off and say, I need a new car. I'll get a new car next week. I'll start over. Right? You got a little flat tire. That's all right. We'll pull over. We'll fix it and we'll get on the road. Training is a process, right? We're just building, putting bricks on top of each other, right? And all we're doing is putting down the next brick, and eventually you built a house, right? But it just starts with the brick, and like
and it never ends. You never get to the point where you're like, I am fit enough. I'm good.
Right. It had been, for whatever reason, it had been 6 months, or maybe it's not as long as that, since I'd done any real like lunges in my training, like not split squats in place, like lunging and decelerating. And then just public service announcement: lunges will make you sore the next day, right? Like, well, thank you for coming to my TED talk. But I'm like, wow, years and years of training, and you just don't do lunges for a little bit and it all goes away. Right?
We're very similar. I did deloaded lunges yesterday where we would touch down and shut it off to a knee pad. And we did like 6 sets of 20, 3 on each, and I'm completely wasted. But same thing, I haven't done that depth of lunge.
6 sets on their first day back. You would never give that to a client.
That's different. I'm a seasoned athlete.
That's how I do things. Like, hey everyone, make sure you take it easy when you start doing lunges again. Just 1 set, ease into it. Also me, these rules do not apply to me.
Yeah, exactly. Two sets of 50, and now I can't walk anymore. Yeah. All right. Results University. Tell me about Results University. What do you guys got going on? I saw you have like a whole new location now, and you're kind of taking things to the next level.
So Results University started as I was teaching at Perform Better, and I was teaching about, for example, fat loss programming. And then I taught about something else on program design. And I mentioned once something about small group training. And then all the questions were about that. So the next year I covered how we do that and how I structured it. And then I touched on how we bill for that and schedule it. And all the questions were on that. So if you're smart, you listen to what your audience is asking you. And our audience started asking us business development questions and things of that nature. So then we did a course at the gym where you could come out and just shadow what we're doing for a few days. And it really evolved into, like, we became business consultants for mainly fitness people, but some martial arts schools and yoga studios and different things like that. And so years of doing that and renting out overpriced hotel rooms, because it got too busy to do it at the gym. Right? It got too much interference. We ended up renting a place just opposite the gym to do our own live events, which is right now has become a movie studio for me to film stuff. It's where I do things. And that's where we'll be doing our next course will be our sort of fitness coach MBA course will be coming from that, and we'll be delivering from there. It's really just our mentorship and how we, if you've been to one before, or you've taken one online, hopefully a lot of that structure is still the same, but we're in a different world now, right? We've got some other challenges and things we have to do. And I mean, I keep joking, like, I've done so many podcasts that were on Skype. And then when the shutdown came, everybody went to Zoom. How did you drop the ball, Skype? How did you not win this contest, right? For video conferencing that just came in and took over. But you know, the world has changed. So our business and Results University is one of it's a separate business completely now. It actually started it was called AlanCosgrove.com because it was my website that sold, you know, fitness ebooks and DVDs. And now it's really a consulting company that's taken a life of its own. So the next thing will be this, and I'm going to call it an online mentorship because I don't really have another word to describe it, but it's what I would do if I came and took over your business for you, right? That's the best way I can answer it, is that I've always tried to answer questions that based on what I know, if I were you, this is what I would do. Right, like I don't have all the answers to in everybody's situation, but I'll give you the best that I know how, and I would treat it like it's my own business. And really, that's what we're going to create. Is it's something we haven't recorded anything yet, and like I said, we'll do it in little daily chunks with you know, action steps that people have to apply. So basically, that you shouldn't move on to the second thing on a to-do list until you do the first thing, right? Nice. And but if we did 10 lessons and you did a change after every lesson, that's a massive amount of change, right?
Sure.
So that's what I think. But I want to get back to live, man. I want to get back to we can have people come in live and you know, interact and you know.
I'll tell you not to rub it in, but
I miss planes, man. I didn't think I missed hotel rooms.
Yeah, my wife and I took a trip to Denver, and it was like, this is kind of cool. Like, you got excited about going flying again because you knew that it's kind of like the thing that nobody's supposed to be doing. But we went, had a great time, and felt real safe the whole time. And you know, not to rub it in about the whole being live thing, but it was a huge emotional change for me to finally get my clients back in here live. I can't wait for the opportunity to be able to speak in front of a live audience again too. You know, I'm really looking forward to that. So
it'll be interesting. As I suspect that anything we do going forward, and I've done a few where like NSC has live streamed the Perform Better, and I've done a few where we're doing both. I think that's probably going to be the future, as a hybrid for them, where you're not just tuning into a live event. I'm also talking to the people at home, right? Where I've got to change how I'm presenting too. So I think that's the future.
Live and then to the camera and live into the camera, including everyone.
That's it. Like a kind of talk show with an audience, perhaps, is the best example. Like, you know, the late show and stuff like that.
I like that.
But it's I just know right now I'm much stronger live, and the interaction in real time is always more effective as a teacher. Like I can see when you didn't get something. Like same as when I can tell you to go do your workout and you send me the training log later and you said everything wrong. Like I'd have caught that in real time, you know. So it's the same, but it just you can see everything as an obstacle, right? Or you can see everything as an opportunity, and this is just an opportunity. The challenge for everybody is a lot of gyms are not going to make it, right? And that stinks. The ones that do, and I'll guarantee that there'll be a lot of the people on this call because you care enough to tune in to professional development, you're going to make it, but the competition is going to be higher. The standards are going to go up because it's not the good guys that are going to go under, it's the bottom, right? So I hate to say blessing in disguise because this whole thing has been terrible, but it could be a complete reset for our profession.
Agreed. Couple, maybe a week ago. So when I drive here in the mornings, I like to listen to ebooks or to documentaries or whatnot. Couple, maybe a week ago, you put up, if you guys aren't watching this coaching show on Netflix, you know, you're missing out. I forget the name of it, but I saw that and I'm like, all right, So the very first one is Doc Rivers, and I absolutely love it. He has this word, Ubuntu, and he tells the story about Ubuntu and how it's about living life for each other, and about, you know, if you're going to do something for you, you should do it for those. And he's like, I brought a cheeseburger on the airplane, and they were like, no cheeseburgers for us. That's not Ubuntu, man. Like it was just kind of hearing him talk about how that brought the Celtics team in 07 or 08, brought that team together. So I kind of I had a conversation with my kids, and I'm like, I really like this. I like this idea. And so my wife and I are now kind of using that terminology. It was a really great thing to take away from that one episode. And I think there's like 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah. And I think if you're not just a coach, if you're in any type of leadership position at all, and even just as a parent, there's gems in this.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was a great series. And so your favorite one was the soccer coach, yeah?
I think so. The one with Jose Mourinho was a good one. Jill Ellis, the U.S. women's coach, was good. I like the one with, and I'm gonna forget his name, Serena Williams. They all had little bits, right?
Yeah,
they all was really good.
Yeah.
I actually had Doc Rivers' assistant at the time, Kevin Eastman, do a keynote for me, and you got a little insight into that entire culture, right? And you know like how the teams where they were at the Celtics at the time, and he went to the Clippers with them when he was still at the Clippers, and the idea just talking about, like, I think Kevin Garnett, he would buy all the young players suits. It goes like when they're young and they just sign, he'd take them out and get their suits tailored and pay for them, and just be like now you look like a pro, and I want you to act like a pro. You're going to dress and you're going to act like a pro. Just that whole culture of here's how we do
acceptance and
talks about
part of the team.
There's a story of Doc Rivers taking a team on a bus, and he's with the Celtics on a bus tour, and he said, everybody on the coach, I ought to talk to you, and he took them on the parade tour if they won the NBA title.
Oh, that's cool.
What it's going to be like this is going to be like here, but these are the
wow.
Like you think that how is a personal trainer going to learn something from an elite NBA coach? There's stuff. And this is
I was very interested in it.
It's worth a watch, and it's worth a rewatch. Another one to watch is The Last Dance. Did you watch that with the Chicago Bulls?
Yeah, the Bulls. Oh, for sure. Yeah, that was fantastic.
That saved me in lockdown. That saved me from going crazy.
For sure. Yeah, and it's cool because, like, you watch something like that and you're so into the moment of, you're like, this is the new episode, and when you come back and watch it again, there's a lot of stuff that you missed. You know what I mean? Because you're not. But that was a team. I wasn't a huge Bulls fan, but I knew that team because we saw them every day. You know, they were always on TV. So yeah, that was really neat to see the behind the scene of that.
It's what can like, trainers don't like McDonald's, right? Because it's fast food and it's bad for you. But what can you learn from that business model? Right, you don't have to be a Bulls fan to look at that culture. For
sure, yeah.
And to look at and get something from it. You don't have to be a soccer fan to look at, you know, Jose Mourinho and understand how he creates champions. Right.
His opening comment, they said, "So who are you influenced by?" And he goes, "Nobody, me, just me." Hey, you want to talk about your parents? Nope, not going to talk about it. The guy's like, shit, what are we going to talk about then? I guess we'll just go right into you being great. And he's like, all right, I can talk about that.
He always called himself, I'm the special one.
The special one.
But like, you can critique it, or you can just learn from that complete. I watched Sugar Ray Leonard doing an interview years ago, and he's going to fight Thomas Hearns, and the interviewer had said to him, like, if you were to take a beating, and he's like, no, next question. And he goes, you won't talk about that? He goes, no. And he goes, why not? In there. He goes, because it's not true. And at first you're like, wow, he's so arrogant. And you realize that he actually can't understand the possibility that he might lose. Right? Like it doesn't go through his. I remember first seeing the UFC. I came up in competitive martial arts, and this is mindset, right? I came up and I remember watching the UFC. I mean, this is tremendous, man, because when you get too close to kick and punch, you could just grab the guy and knee him in the face and then take him to the ground and choke him unconscious. This is great. And it was about 5 years later, I realized I could be kneed in the face and that guy could take me down and choke me unconscious. It had never crossed my mind that I'd be on the receiving end, right? Yeah. Because that was my mindset as a competitive athlete, and you could tell I'd retired. Because now as a retired athlete, I could see the brutality that could happen to me that I'd never considered before. Right? But that's
that mindset that you're indestructible at the time, right?
Like as a young coach, I think there's this idea like you wonder if your program's going to work. And your questions as you become a senior coach is, how do you make this program that will always work better? Because you have so much confidence in your knowledge.
Yeah. Well, just to wrap things up here and to kind of bring things full circle, you know, I started kind of talking about one of the stories, the shoe salesman. Another one that stuck with me was what you were just talking about here was your bar fight, step in and cover. And I know it's silly. It's kind of silly to bring up those things, but the whole idea of that is that you learned this one thing. It saved your life in this instance, but you learned this one thing that was like foundational, that has a drastic effect on everything you do. The foundations, the mortar of what you do, that's what everything's built on. And I just want you to know, without sounding like too much of a goof here, that a lot of the things that you are teaching, on myself, Brian Boggs is a former employee of mine. I know he's here in town, and he's learned a ton from you. There's so many of us that have learned great things from you guys, from our business practices and having those be foundational in how we deliver our service, the quality that we want to have, the systems of how we program, the way we build our community in here. Like you guys have done, you and Rachel have done fantastic work all the way back with Mike Wunsch, with Craig, with the whole team, with Elias. Like it's, you know, we've learned a lot from you guys, from your live events on how I want to do them at that quality. Like it's been exceptional. So I want to thank you for your time. Number one, I want to thank you for the body of work that you've done, from your materials that you write and you put out, to your presentations, to your continued efforts of online information that you put out for us. You're a true leader in the industry, and you know, many of us look up to you for that. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate that very much. You're a very accomplished individual in your own right. My rule are there's no need to thank me. You just pay it forward as you're doing. And if we all do that, we can absolutely change the entire world. Right? As I always tell people, like, yeah, I appreciate the thanks, but what would show me the thanks is when you spread the message forward and go help your clients and help young coaches to develop. And we'll look back years from now and just see this amazing ripple effect that we've all had together. Right?
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you, Al. I appreciate it. We will do that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Anybody that missed it, or any colleagues or such, this will be on our YouTube page a little bit later on. We'll share that out. And again, thank you all for being here. Alwyn, you're the man. Appreciate it, my man.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.